There's been a lot of debate over the past few weeks while I've been working on this project as to the nature of it and the purpose of it, but really I don't feel I'm doing anything inappropriate because art should have a purpose. It should emotionally incite a conversation and affect change when possible. At least good art should. So the goal today is to continue working on this piece. I have one more soldier to prep, and I wanted to change this gun into a rubber bullet gun so that it would be a bit more accurate, and that way it kind of shows an escalation. Rubber bullet gun, AK, light machine gun, all within the same image. So I like that idea. And I'm going to finish the base today. So those are the two things I'll be working on today. And if you have any comments, just drop them in the chat, and I will respond to them ASAP. Where is the chat? There it is. I'll have that open along the side. Okay, we got some more people joining. Chris Casebowl, what's up? Thanks for joining the stream. Luciana saying articulated. I don't know if I'm going to articulate any of these characters. They don't really need to be, but or maybe you were talking about the nature of what I was saying being well articulated. Actually, this is a project I was doing for another client. I'll kind of quickly show you what that is. So there's like a 3D character print sculpt that I'll be doing. Finishing up today, hopefully. We'll see. Turn that off. Let's load up our scene. Got ZBrush open now, and I'm just navigating over. How's everybody doing? I hear the numbers for COVID are rising very quickly in California, about up 69% in a day. I think more people are simply getting tested, so there's simply more people testing positive. And more than likely, the CDC said that there's, 10 times the number of people that probably have it that aren't being tested. So it's a crazy world right now. We've got protests, we've got riots, we've got a pandemic in full swing. We're here trying to make art and trying to, keep moving, keep hustling, keep living. All right, so these light green ones you can see are the ones that have been prepped. What I mean by prepped is that these have all been keyed, so they have in the feed also been hollowed and decimated. So they're about, this one's 380,000 polys, and hollowed meaning that if you look inside, I switch to my select tool. You can see how this piece has already been hollowed. So the inside of the piece is only going to be about that thick, which is why the model itself is so light. And I don't waste material when I'm working on it. So I think this is an important step for when printing in resin. And I tend to, in my scenes, color them bright green so I know these are print ready. Then this one means that it's not print ready, or the base. So let's finish this character first, because then all the keying will be done, and then we can finish the base, and you can kind of see my process. I got Harold Don on Facebook saying I'm considering switching from Blender to ZBrush. Does ZBrush have a Boolean feature for cutting and keying models? In fact, yes, it does. I don't think it's fair to say you could switch from Blender to ZBrush. They're very different software, but I'll show you how I go about slicing and keying. So I've got this brush over here called Aim Keys Articulation Brush, and when you click on it, got all these different keys here. So you can do, tapered square, you can actually do Booleans, hinge joint, ball joints, and this is a key that I set up on Gumroad. So if you type in Gumroad Keys Articulation, that's there. I can just select tapered square and draw that out. And you can see how it gets drawn out. And I can switch to move and even move that up or down. So I can bury it a bit deeper into the mesh. Do the same thing on the other foot. Got to be in draw mode. Because that really does affect how these keys are drawn out sometimes. And you know what, before I even do that, I want to make sure that the base is kind of flat. So what I want to do is maybe pull this foot down a little bit into the base, both of them. And I'll just use my clip curve brush to hold Control Shift and draw that out over there. And what that's going to do is just flatten the bottom really well. Now I can go in with my keys brush and draw these in. When you have solo mode on, it's going to only show you the key as is being drawn out. So you can turn solo mode off and turn the base off as well. All right, that looks good, but I want the keys to be about the same height, so I'm going to go ahead and just Control-Shift-Click to clip from the bottom, and there we go. The keys are now the same height. So this model is ready almost. Next thing we're going to do is Dynamesh and hollow it out. But before I do that, I want to finish updating this weapon of his. So I'm going to turn this gun into just a simple a rubber gun. A rubber bullet gun. And luckily the model I downloaded from the internet had it as a separate piece. So what I'm going to do now is just work on that. Control Shift click and split hidden to hide the rest of it. And there's the model. All right, so what I like is the tail end of it, and I like the scope, but all of this would need to change. We just don't need all that there. If you look at what an actual rubber bullet gun looks like, it looks more like a shotgun than a dual-handed, I don't know, AR-15 or whatever that gun was. So this is what we're trying to build, basically. We can use this stock from the back, we can use the scope, maybe even use the grip, but we want to change the actual barrel to look more like it would fire large projectiles. So it needs to look basically like a giant cylinder. So I'll have a couple of these images open off to the side on my other screen, and I'm going to be working here. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different types of rubber bullet guns. In the past month, we've seen a lot of these used very improperly by police, directly aimed at people's faces. I think they're supposed to hit the ground and bounce up, but a lot of people have lost eyes over the past month because of improper use of this weapon. It's just a simple matter of training. I think there hasn't been enough training. They're just kind of handed toys, and of course people would use them. However you feel about the protests, it's kind of, I think, something that everyone can agree on, that there shouldn't be military weapons being used against civilian population. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'll duplicate this mesh, and I'm going to hide a whole bunch of it. Maybe we'll keep all of this bottom part for the hand. There we go. All right, so we're keeping the hand, and we'll keep the scope and the stock in the back. And we'll just add a cylinder here to make it look like a different sort of weapon. You can tell I'm not trying to be super precise with this. It's more about the context of the overall piece rather than every little bit. So I'm going to go to Modify Topology and click Delete Hidden, and that'll wipe that out. And then if I Dynamesh now, so if I go to Geometry, Dynamesh, let's see what happens at 128 resolution first. Not enough resolution, so let's crank that up to, say, 500. Bit better, up to 400,000 polys. Maybe let's take it to 700, and that should do the trick. Trying a few different materials, switch to the RS Sculpey over here. And we can smooth these various pieces out along the edge. So that's one great thing about Dynamesh in terms of 3D printing. It's very good at preparing meshes for 3D print because it'll close all the edges. And I see little bits that are kind of just hanging out by themselves. I can hide those in Dynamesh again, and it'll fill those in. So just keeping my mesh really nice and clean and tight. Simplifying so that there won't be any gaps or holes which would lead to problems during print. We got Dr. Pixels Aruba saying it shouldn't be weapons, period. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of true. Maybe if you're saying that it shouldn't be weapons being used against protesters. Yeah, I mean, the whole point of America being a country that has a democratic process, that has a First Amendment right to free speech to its citizens, protest is a form of free speech. So, I mean, coming from Pakistan, where I was born, I know what it's like to be in a country where speech isn't a given right. And the more America kind of claps back on these protesters, the more we realize that even here in America, speech isn't a given right. It's something that you have to fight for constantly because the forces of fascism, I guess is the best way to describe them, are always around the corner, wanting to take away those rights. All right, so that looks good, at least for like the base of the weapon. Now let's add in some of the things that we want in order to make it feel like a rubber bullet gun. They really should call it something. A defensive ball launcher. That's one fun word. All right, going to start with the cylinder, and what I can do is kind of just draw it out here, going in the direction that I want. Switch to my move tool and move transpose, and I can kind of just move it that way. I can also switch to Gizmo 3D to scale it up larger and control it that way. And Gizmo 3D is useful because you can kind of operate like you would other 3D software. Have your pivot, move it around. Von Buki saying, spray the end result black and it'll still look real enough to get you shot. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing here also is we're giving the police every sort of weapon imaginable, and even civilians in America have sort of insane weapons, but civilians can get shot just for even walking around with toy guns. Dr. Pixels Aruba is saying, have you seen the demo of Unreal saying that now you can use full res brush assets? Yeah, I did. The new Unreal Engine 5 demo saying that you can use high res millions of poly topology in Unreal Engine. It's kind of insane. Never have a situation where multi-million poly will be usable. No, that's also true. It's not going to happen in game workflow that technical artists would allow something like that because there's a limited number of resources that you can use to create a game. However, what it does do is allow creators to be more conceptual and create quicker and iterate faster so you can have better real-time creation. All right, once I've got that barrel in place, I'm going to split unmasked points, and that'll just turn it into its own mesh. That way I can divide, and it becomes separate from the piece. Now I don't want it to divide just like that, so I'll go into a bit of Z modeler, clicking into brush and Z and M, and I've got insert edge loop on by default, so I'll click over some of these edges at the ends and insert edge loop, so that way I'll have a bit of a sharper crease when it does divide. There we go. Sharper crease, that looks a lot better. and we want there to be a hole there, so I'm going to duplicate that piece. And this goes back to an earlier question I was asked about Booleans in ZBrush. So check this out. I'm going to my scale gizmo. I'll scale that piece down, move it out forward, and now I'm going to use it to Boolean subtract. So let's up a little bit larger, say about like that. And all I need to do is click on this button here in my subtool palette, which will turn on subtract, go under render, render booleans, live boolean, and now you can see I can subtract that piece out. It hasn't actually done it yet. It's live, so I can actually see what happens as I move things around, which is really cool. And I can scale, move, rotate, anything I want, have it show me before it actually goes live. So that's really awesome, I think. And now also the benefit of having all that as a separate mesh is I can adjust the other meshes accordingly, like this hand. Just kind of bury that into the top. And fix the proportions to better suit this gun. So the Unreal Engine demo, since y'all are talking about that, that is the future, I think, of film, of games, of everything, is real time. Because sooner or later, we're all going to have access to be able to create our own games, our own animations, everything we want. The creation tools will exist to allow us to do. And that's what the real beauty of something like allowing millions of polygons in Unreal is about. It's not about actually having it for workflow. I think even the Unreal Engine demo is just that. It's a demo. It's not a final game. But allowing you to do that, that's what it's about, because it'll open up the avenues of creation. I'm looking forward personally to being able to make something with my Fungus-Ores in Unreal Engine. Probably like a short film or a game, at least to start. I'd love to have an animated series, but it's hard to find time to develop everything I need in order to pitch that series to Netflix or wherever else I want to take it, because there's just so much to do and so little time in the day. Coming around here, sculpting up the nails a little bit. I don't need to do a ton of that because it's not like actually people will be looking at this guy's nails, but it's important to have something kind of in place. There we go. Looking good. Maybe some veins over here. All right. Go over it with standard brush, spray, and maybe a little bit of alpha 8. And what that'll do is just kind of create a bit of noise, lower the intensity as I do that. And it kind of just buries that detail that I did. I often over sculpt and then bury that detail. That's one thing I learned about sculpting from real life in clay. It's never just one operation. Usually you'll use one tool and then you'll use another tool on top of that. All right, and turn some music up while we sculpt today. Just trying to look at some better reference right now. We do want to make a targeted site up at the top. Grim Reaper asking, do you use Keyshot? I'm looking at maybe getting it, but I'm also looking at similar. I haven't heard of Maverick. I'll show you a bit of my Keyshot workflow at the end of this once I've got everything ready, so you can see what a render looks like. But first I'm going to just keep building this out. So up at the top here looks like we could use some sites. So I'll go in with the insert mesh brush of cube. Just look at it from the top down and draw that out. Then take the move and bury that in. Do that again, or just Control-Shift click to just duplicate it, move it upward, scale it down, move that down again. And one more time, Control-Shift click to move it up. Hold Shift as I do that, move it down. Maybe make this one a bit thinner and taller. Got a question from Dr. Pixels Aruba on Twitch. Any personal recommendation on entry-level 3D printers? Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share that. Really depends on what you're using the printers for. If you're using resin printers, if you're looking for a resin printer that can get you good high-res detail, I think right now the Elegoo Mars is a pretty good price. I'm going to hold Control-Shift and just kind of clip these pieces. I need a little bit more resolution, so I'm going to auto groups, and then I'll do a group split. That way all three of these will end up on their own layers. So Elegoo Mars, the Creality printers are great for FDM to get a bit of experience. They're cheap, a couple $100. So the Creality CR10 for FDM, and then the Elegoo Mars I think is a good starting level printer for resin right now. Although that hasn't shipped, so maybe you should go with the, let me see, pull up some 3D printers for you. Printer Rex, here we go. So the ones I've been looking at are the Piapoli Phenom and the Frozen Transform because they're massive. The Anycubic Photon is a good resin printer to start with because it's relatively small and you can get good detail from it. So Anycubic Photon, and Anycubic just recently this week I believe launched in their wash stations, Wash and Cure I believe it's called. Yeah, check this out. So it's the equivalent of a Formlabs Form Wash, but it's a bit smaller build volume and a lot cheaper. So $200 to be able to cure and wash your prints. So that's new as of this week. So I'm pretty psyched about that. Because cleaning up prints, that's resin prints, that's the stopper for a lot of people because it's not the replicator from Star Trek yet. There's a lot of hand crafting involved, and it's cool to have a machine that can, you know, rinse and wash and clean stuff so that you don't have to do everything by hand. So Anycubic, the Photon and stuff, I think that's a good recommendation. And then if you're ready to step up to a professional level, I recommend the Formlabs machines, the Formlabs Form 2 and 3. I have a couple of the Form 2s. Really reliable, really plug and play. A lot more expensive than your average SLA or other machines, DLP machines, but they're a lot simpler to use. The new ones are the Frozen Transform and the Piapoli Phenom, and those are just big. They're a lot cheaper than Formlabs machines, and they're a lot bigger. The resin is a bit stinkier. There's pluses and minuses with each, but I think if you're looking for big resin printers for getting that detail and getting high resolution stuff, that's what you'd be looking for. So I hope that helped answer your question. Back to ZBrush, I'm going to Dynamesh that part, and I'm now going to use the clip brushes to get me the shape that I'm after. So I'm going to have to Dynamesh each of them and clip. And anywhere you click the move tool, the transpose, it can actually just move it for you. So that's pretty dope as a feature. So I'm just using a combination of different tools in order to get this part ready. I don't even know where this is from. There we go. So now we've got like some sights that you can look down as you're aiming. But you can see the whole sights, all of them are a bit rotated off and getting in the way of the scope. So I'll just adjust those now, rotate them accordingly. Merge down, and move, rotate. So strange, I don't remember moving everything forward like that. At some point I moved the weapon back. I don't even know when I did that. That's so strange. It's okay. You can get it back into place. It's so wonky. It's all stretched out now too. I wonder when that happened. Because I can't even undo back to it. Weird. Sometimes when you turn Booleans on, I've noticed, the live Boolean, it makes it very hard to work with other pieces because, yeah, you can see that every time I switch back to that weapon, it's getting even more and more janky. That's so crazy. Whoa, weird. It's a good thing I'm on the ZBrush beta team because then I can point out this kind of weird stuff that happens. Yeah, I think I've pretty much lost that work that I did in the beginning because of how weird it looks now. Let's see if we can get it back to looking a bit more normal. And just move that a bit there. Yeah, generally you don't want to try to build, at least for a production workflow, you don't want to build models at an angle like this. You want to build them at 0, 0, 0 origin and then bring them into place. I'm just trying to speed things up a bit. Anyways, you don't need Booleans in order to see that stuff happen. You can actually just make something a Dynamesh sub and merge down and Dynamesh, and it should cut it out. There we go. So that got cut out right there from the inside. And now I can merge these pieces and make sure my scene is a bit cleaner. Move some of these pieces down, keep my organization. Hard to stay organized as you work. Grim Reaper saying, I don't think I'll ever use a resin printer. A lot of potential health concern with the resin being toxic and the potential for spillage. That's absolutely true. If you wear gloves and if you are careful, it's okay. You can probably get by, but it's hard to sometimes. I can totally understand that. All right, so I can see where the weapon was supposed to be, and I can move the other piece around to that now that I've got everything merged together. Weird how that happened. I don't actively recall moving anything. That looks right. And I'll come in and tweak it a bit, make it perfect. I probably want this stock resting on his shoulder so that it'll be easier to 3D print it. So I'll come in with my move brush and just make some larger move adjustments to the shoulder and arm so that I can fit it in place. I'm probably going to try to print it in one go. That's one good thing about resin, is that you can get a lot of detail and print really complex shapes. FDM, I often still have to slice in key parts apart, but resin I can often get away with printing really complex pieces. Edward saying, what a detailed model. Where did I get that from? That's a good question. I just typed into Google soldiers 3D model, and after looking for about 15 minutes I found this one, and I can link you to it in a second. Maybe CG Trader? I don't know. Let's see. I had it in my stream 2 streams ago when I was actually setting up the scene. Most of the time nowadays, if I'm trying to make a piece just to actually convey some emotion of mine, I don't care about it being built from scratch. I like to find online models because it's all about what I'm trying to communicate, my voice, not about the craft of building everything one by one by one. That certainly is important. I don't want to undermine the craft at all. I'm just saying it's not so important to build every single piece when you're trying to create an image or a sculpture just to convey your idea. Okay, here we go. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of control dragging from one piece to another, so I can select all the pieces. Control Shift click. Sometimes it works easily, sometimes it's giving me trouble if I'm not able to select right from a corner piece. There we go. Got all the pieces now. And now I can rotate this into place. Alright, so that's looking right. Looking like you can launch a pretty dangerous rubber bullet. Let's see if I need to add anything else specifically. Probably something in the back here. Split, unmask points. Control there, rotate, go to my gizmo. I can even click on this little go to unmasked mesh center, and it'll give me the ability to rotate and move it around, control it easily. Right, let me see if I can find where I got that model from. Here we go. It was CG Trader. So about 40 bucks on CG Trader. You can get all of these 4 different models. I believe they're Russian military. So if you're using them for something that's they're designed for 3D printed miniature sculptures by Stranik 1988. That was the one model. The other model, I believe, was a Maya rig that I used called the NEKA rig in order to get the pose into place. Let me see if I can point you to the right direction for that as well. That was the Eniki Maya rig. This character right here. And I used her in order to get the pose of the protester and get it in there and get it just right so that I could create this image. And the beauty of it, I guess, to me was using these models, using the tools, I was able to very quickly get to the core of what I was trying to say. And that was what was important, is to make that image. Then later what you do with it, that's really the key. I don't often recommend using online models if you're trying to make money. If you're trying to sell them, then yes, it becomes lame. But if you're trying to create something to say something, I don't know if it's if it deserves kind of any derision. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is duplicate that base. Just Control-Shift-click on it, just so I'm only selecting that one piece. Delete hidden. And let's use the move transpose to move it back just there as it is. Then I'll use the gizmo tool. It took me a while to get used to using gizmo. What about y'all? Do you use the gizmo yet? Takes a bit of getting used to, no doubt. I'll duplicate it again. Move it back a bit more, scale it down a bit more. Let's take a look at what this is looking like. Dynamesh it one more time. Come in here. And we could try to just select one flat area in the back. Control tap to mask or update the mask. And then scale. Again, if you do unmasked mesh center, it's only going to do from the actual mask itself. So that's a really useful feature. Do something like that. Move it back. Create a bit of a different profile there. Dynamesh that. Let's move it forward. Just trying to make it look like it belongs. And maybe move that part forward a bit. Cool. All right, what's next? If we want to keep adding to it, I'm looking at the reference right now. Close out of that. Might as well extend these kind of ridges that go all the way top to the grip, and that'll make it look a bit more realistic. So let's add a few of these ridges going all the way down to the top. Easiest way to do this probably is, again, to go to the Insert Mesh Primitives. Or I can even take a look at these pieces that we've got here and try to duplicate just those. So I'll duplicate this mesh, select lasso, select that bit right there, then click delete hidden, Dynamesh that piece, maybe increase the resolution a bit, there we go. Let's go to my move brush without the gizmo on, move that up so it'll be a bit more, so it'll read a bit better in the sculpture. That looks right. And now what we want to do is just duplicate it along the axis going down to the hilt. So I'll click on that right there. That gives me the direction of the normal that I want. Move it forward by Control-Shift clicking. Control-Alt clicking, and then Control-Shift. And select the whole thing. Now I can do the whole thing at once. Oop. Move my transpose. And this is actually a great way because it'll help me line up where that site's supposed to be just perfectly. Click Auto Groups. Hide some of these. Delete hidden. Now I can move these three pieces. Yeah, that's why this one's so hard to select, is because it hasn't actually been Dynamesh. There's just got a lot fewer points. Invert that selection. There we go. Go to Rotate. Click right there. Get my gizmo. And line up the sites accordingly. There we go. Cool. Now I want to probably take this bottom piece and extend it all the way back. So let's go ahead and select it on its own. Split hidden. Click on the move brush. Maybe select the top of it. Shrink it down. There we go. About that height is right. Tap over there. And now I'll extend that all the way back to the beginning. Right there. Then I can select these two pieces. Auto group it and move it down. Nope. Make sure I'm selecting it first, then move it down. Hard to get that completely centered, and that's the challenge of working at an angle sometimes. I'm going to go ahead and Dynamesh this piece just so it'll give me a bit more resolution to work on. Tap on the one end. And there we go. Just extend that out so it looks even on both ends. I think what we want to do is find the center pivot for those and then rotate that as well. It's kind of hard to line up the angle perfectly. Might have been better to just build this somewhere else and then bring it in. But what I'll do is I'll do the center gizmo and then work on it there. There we go. Slowly getting everything to line up. And we can lose these front sight bits as well. Alright, now that looks right. Or at least it'll be passable when 3D printed. I'm going to delete hidden, and let's merge all these pieces together. Click merge down. Don't need that old weapon, I'll delete that out. Keep the scene a bit cleaner. Drop my mask. I'm a bit worried about this scope because of the way it doesn't have an actual support. It might break off. And that's the challenge of 3D printing, is you have to think a bit like an engineer. So let's make that piece, I think, just a lot larger. So I'll Control-Shift-Click on it, just so I can only see that piece. And I'll select the scope. Invert it. Go to my scale. With my gizmo, click on Unmask Mesh Center, and I'll just scale that. Or I could print the scope as a separate piece. That's a good point, Grim Reaper. Honestly, with this piece, I'm just trying to create as fast as possible, which is why you're going to see a lot of quick and dirty fixes. I think that should do the trick. Control-Shift-Click to see everything. There we go. So does it look super realistic? No, but in the context of a scene, is that the part you'll be looking at? I doubt it. All right, here we go. That's looking right. Now I can merge the whole piece. So I'm going to go Geometry, Dynamesh, and let's see what resolution we should merge at. Let me save first in case so we don't lose the work. Save it as number 7. Always iterate up your files. Okay. And let's try dynameshing this at 300 resolution, see what we get. It gives me about 1.8 million polys. Gets a little bit blurred, the details, but not a whole heck of a lot. I think that's very passable. Make sure there's nothing to clean up over here. You can see some of this area where the sleeve didn't quite merge in. I'm just going to inflate. Make sure that it's all nice and filled in. Same thing with the other sleeve, just want to do a check. Check, check, check. Okay, looking right. Let's Dynamesh again. And now the keys are merged in and this whole weapon is merged in. Let's double check to make sure that there aren't any really, really unsupported areas. Like right there, that area doesn't need so much gap. So I can come in with my Insert Mesh Primitive sphere and just kind of fill that in. Take a look at it from a few different angles. Hide that sphere. Or just use it to kind of create some extra padding. See if anything else stands out. The trigger there has some space. Right under the under the weapon, there's a little bit of space there, but not much. I think all of this should print pretty okay. All right, Dynamesh it all. All right, there we go. All Dynamesh. Now let's go in and hollow it out. So this is my workflow for hollowing a mesh. I'm going to go to the primitives, go to Insert Cylinder, all one piece, Control W to just confirm that it's one piece. And I'm going to go to my brush, depth, reduce that depth a bit, so just lower it down, and Alt-click as I draw out that cylinder. And what Alt-click will do is it'll kind of mask it and invert it and as you do the cylinder. So now you can drop your mask selection, go under Dynamesh. Instead of just clicking Dynamesh, you're going to click Create Shell. And I'll crank this up, let's say 15, and click Create Shell. See what happens. 300 resolution might be a bit too much for this. Just giving it a moment to think. Might have set too much resolution there. Because if it's hollowing it out, it's going to go from 1.8 million to at least double that. So it's going to do almost 4 million polys. Because it's got the whole inside of the mesh now. All right, here we go. It is done. Okay, let's take a look. I'm going to go to MRGB Color Fill Object. And now let's take a look at what this looks like on the inside. Hide half the mesh. Turn on double. And you can see what's going on in there. This is a better way of seeing it. I'm just wanting to first take a quick look. And then this is how I'd actually go about seeing what's inside. I'll go to my mask. Instead of mask lasso, I'll do mask pen. And then I'll draw a mask right around the edge of the hole that I just made. I'll do group masked. Control Shift click auto groups. And then now the outside and the inside are separate poly groups. So if I Control Shift click on the inside, there we go, invert that. Here's the inside that ZBrush has hollowed for me, which is why it sometimes takes a while. It has to think about all this, has to generate all of this. Something to be said about just using this too, like abstract art almost. All right. I'm going to now try to delete some of this. I don't think we need all the inside of this right here or this arm. So first I'm going to go to Lightbox, Brush, go under Smooth, and switch on the Smooth Stronger brush. Now when I hold Control Shift, it'll be, or Control, it'll be smooth, Shift, it'll be Smooth Stronger. Smooth Stronger is just very good at crunching that detail away, even if it's a lot of polys here. I can also just use my H polish to quickly hide away and brush away some of that detail. I try to make sure the inside of my meshes are very soft and smooth, just so there aren't complications. Dougie's asking, why would I set it so dense for the interior? I wasn't planning on it. I just kind of rolled with it. As the nature of doing demos sometimes is you're just too occupied doing it that you don't think about whether you should do it. I think that's a Jurassic Park quote I just made. Control Shift click, hide. Alright, now these parts I'm just going to delete. So I'll invert, and then I'll delete hidden, and then I'll Dynamesh again. Try to take the resolution down from 300 to say 250. See if that lowers it just a bit. Alright, and now if we look inside again, we should be pretty decent. There we go. So you can see how the inside is all smoothed out, and it's a pretty thick conservative hollowing so that you can have not too much material used during the print. Let's come on back here, that part that I had added on. Just smooth that out just a bit. Cool. All right, now last step is to go to Decimation Master, pre-process current, and decimate it down. That way I'll be able to export it print and it won't be 2 million polys. It'll be something like a few 100,000. Alright, Grim Reaper was asking about my Keyshot workflow earlier, so I'll show a bit of that once I've got all these pieces done to show how we can get a render. And actually that's a good way to experiment with paint finishes, how I would plan to paint it once it's finished. Alright, I'm going to go to this Decimation Master now at 20%, decimate. And that should be good. Song is a bit way too peaceful for what I'm trying to make right now. Alright, there we go. Colored him green just to be able to tell myself, yes, that part is done too. In scene, we'll name him Standing Soldier 2. Already there, cool. And let's export out that Standing Soldier. Export OBJ. Because I've already got the scene built to correct scale, I can just export out my soldier there, and we can pull them up for print prep. Now, for print prep, I'm using the software Preform for my Formlabs Form 2. And here you can see the previous soldier that I've set up. This is the soldier with the LMG, the light machine gun. Same exact workflow in ZBrush. Keyed. Actually, he's not hollowed from the bottom, you can see. I hollowed him at the top. right there, the top of his helmet. If you want to look on the inside, you can see a bit of how he's looking. And how this will get drawn out when 3D printing. First few layers, then the rest of them. So this is the beauty of resin printers in my mind, is the complexity of this piece, being able to print it in one go. That's, you know, irreplaceable, because you're getting something very complex without having to do all the minutia of slicing and keying every part off for FDM. Even though I would do that for even SLA, depending on if it was a toy prototype or something. But since this is a one-off piece, this should be good. I have to send this to print. So as it is, I'll save it first. It's taking its time thinking about it. Dougie's asking how much resin did it use for the one soldier. This uses about 151.39 milliliters. Now, Formlabs resin costs 150 bucks per liter. Then by milliliter, it's 0.15. So 15 cents for me to think about, and multiply that by 151.39. It's about $22 to print that one statue just for myself. These soldiers are about, I'd say, 6 inches tall. So 25 bucks or so for me to do just the print, in terms of resin cost. I think the save is taking a long time because it's trying to save this up on my Dropbox in a very specific place. And now I can upload it to my printer, which is called Cloudy Peachik. Gray 4, that's the resin I'll be using. And I can double check the settings. That's already there at 50 microns. Click Upload Job. This print is supposed to take 22 hours. So I've got this soldier, the other soldier, both 22-hour prints, and then the base. And the base is massive. I can't even print that on my resin printer. I'll probably print that on my FDM. So let's take a look at the base. If each soldier is basically maxing out the resin print volume that I have, the base, there's no way it would fit in. It's too big. So the way I'm going to print this base is in my FDM printer, my Raise 3D N2 Plus, which can print 12 by 12 inches, so much wider. So what I'm going to do is probably just need to slice this into two pieces, right at the arm there, and right at the wrist there. And the first thing I want to do is make sure all the soldiers and the protester can key into the base. So I'm going to need to cut them out. So I'm going to go up, 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 duplicate it just to have a backup. And then I'm going to take all my soldiers and merge them together. Actually, let me keep it at the bottom. Merge visible for these. And what I can do now is Control W, Dynamesh all of this. And we don't need much resolution, so I think 150 should do the trick. Dougie's saying the advantage of using a Peopoly not logged on to very costly proprietary resin. Absolutely. I've tried a few different resins with the Formlabs machines in open mode. Even so much as they did a recent survey. Being a Formlabs ambassador, I get to, get some early feedback in on their products. And they did a survey recently about the price of their resin at 150 bucks. It's too much. Resin should probably cost between 50 to 70 bucks max for a liter. So that's what I told them, lower the price of the resin. All right, now that this is Dynamesh, I'm going to go to my deformation tab and inflate just by 1 or 2. Maybe 5. Want to inflate enough that we won't have any trouble when we're Dynameshing, when we're cutting it out of the base. So we'll call this cutter, and we'll name this or color this red. That's my workflow anyways. Just to color it red. That gives me a good idea of what's happening. And I'll append in the cutter, and we'll turn that into a Boolean cutter. Group as Dynamesh sub. Turn on our live Boolean again. And there we can see what's happening. So all of these will get cut out of the base as it does the Boolean operation, and we know exactly where to put each of the soldiers then and the protester. So I'm going to Control W that, group as Dynamesh sub. I could try to merge down and then cut, but it might break the machine, so I'm going to save the scene, and then I'll do a Boolean operation. Dougie, which Peopoly do you have? Do you have the Peopoly Phenom or a different Peopoly? I'm curious as to your experience with it. I've used the Phenom before on a different project. My friend's printer, I was setting up all the supports in Chitu box and send it to him, and it worked all right. 4 prints, they all came out good. The resin is a bit stinkier, but I didn't have any failures. All right, going to go to Boolean now and click Make Boolean Mesh. And it's going to union remesh. Saying cannot be performed, but it usually does it anyway. Let's see if I look on a separate. No, it did not do it at all that time. Usually it says it can't do it, but then it does. Maybe let me try lowering the resolution of these pieces. So from 150, let's try 100. And now using it as a cutter. Make Boolean mesh. All right, Dougie's got the original Laser 130 model. I'm not familiar with that one. That's cool. There's lots of printers now, and I think that's good for us, the consumers and creators, because the more competition there is, the more products we have available, and we can choose where to spend our money and encourage that competition. Here we go. Boolean mesh operation worked that time. You can see a bit of jankiness in the operation, but we can just fill object to hide the various changes. We can even see some floating parts because it's been hollowed, and we don't need those. So I'm going to click on auto groups and just Control Shift click and delete those hidden pieces. All right, this piece is now almost ready. We're going to probably need to slice it right there at the wrist. So I'm going to now go to my slice tool, slice curve, and I'm just going to slice that part off. And I'll do a group split and Dynamesh each part now. Let's see if, since this piece is a lot larger, we may not need that much resolution. So I'm going to shrink it down to say 48 and then click Dynamesh. See what it does. Not bad, but crunched it too much. So let's take it up to 100. Still a bit crunchy. 150 should do the trick there. All right. closes up that hole. That looks good. And we'll do the same for the other piece right here. (128) resolution. Let's see if that works better for this. Dynamesh. So the frozen transform, I've heard good things, but same as you, it's been tough to actually get the printer. The Phenom, it's a similar unit size-wise. It's a very large printer, and I believe that's available for order right now. It's just still a bit expensive, so I haven't pulled the trigger yet. Got a few other pressing concerns going on right now with the pandemic. All right, I'm gonna also come in here, just quickly smooth out some of this. Probably now with my smooth stronger, just use the classic smooth. Making sure I touch up these parts. With something like this with the round circle sticking out that I don't need, I'll just use my trim adaptive brush to hide that detail away. Same over here. But it's okay to leave hints for me of where things will be going. There we go. And now I have to key this piece into the other. So more than likely, since this is a bit smaller, I'll do it here. I'll go over to my keys articulation brush, tapered square, and I'll create a couple of keys here on the side. One there, one there. Let me turn solo off when I do this so I can see what I'm doing. Let's do it again. I want to get those keys going all the way to the bottom if possible. One there. One there. And just hide the top of that again. Trim adaptive. Hide the bottom of that, trim adaptive. Now that might be overkill because I need it to show up in the other part. So maybe I'll make the keys a bit smaller. Okay, that should do the trick. Control W. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I probably want those keys to be a bit longer. Undo that move. I'm going to auto groups and select just the keys. Invert that, and let's make them a bit longer. Just because the base is quite long, I want to make sure that it's nice and strong key there. Okay, now I'll Dynamesh. Dougie's saying you need to keep tabs on people who buy them and get rid of them. So many people buy these toys, being the printers, and don't realize there's a lot of work involved in processing prints and sell them for half the price they paid. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Deadly Esoc is asking, how do you match the key? I'll show you right now. So I've got that, and the other side isn't keyed. So what I'm going to do is duplicate that, set up my Boolean cutter, and that way it'll be exactly where I would need it to be. I might even go into it and do a deformation inflate. Maybe inflated by 5 or something. just so it's got a very clean, a lot of space, a tolerance there for matching that key. Joe Mena on Facebook joining. What's up, Joe? Thanks for joining, mate. How you doing? Let's see. Control W that. That is now ready. Group as Dynamesh sub. And I will merge that down and Dynamesh. And then that piece will be keyed. Good, I'm glad, mate. Joe, where are you at these days? Are you near New York, right? It's crazy. California is now going to be the next COVID hotspot like New York was. Or Florida, I guess, but it's what you expect out of Florida. I expected better out of California. All right, here we go. That is all ready now. So there's the bottom piece, the top piece, and I don't need to hollow these because I'll be printing them on my FDM machine, and that automatically hollows it out. Joe's in New Jersey. Well, stay safe out there, mate. I think from what I've heard, it's not too bad in Jersey right now. All right, so there's the base, and now let's import it in to the right spot. And go ahead and delete these and append the right ones into place. There we go, that one, and just append. Huh, what is happening? I may have two separate versions of the scene open. Yeah, I think I do have two separate versions of the scene open. Append that one. There we go. All right. Wonder why it's not showing properly. Oh, because all the soldiers are on top of it, that's why. Camcorder on here saying I need design advice. What kind of design advice are you looking for? All right. So now I've got the piece. The green ones are fully keyed and prepared for print. The base is about to be prepared. I just have to decimate it, and then it'll be ready. And all the pieces will key into those. And then there will be an actual mirror that's printed out. Reflects the soldiers kind of back at them to show them kind of really the disparity of what's going on with a civilian protester and police decked out in military gear. And that's really what this piece is about. It's about that disparity. It's about that unfairness, and it's about evoking that emotional response. As humans, we're always kind of cheering for the underdog, and that's what this piece is about. It's about making you realize, no, we are the protester. We aren't the police. We are the underdog. And it doesn't matter if you're black or white or brown. It's really, everyone is on the same page in this. By seeing something like this situation, we are on the side of the peaceful person, not the warful people. So it's about individuality over the crowd. There's a lot of different themes that this piece I'm trying to speak to, and which is why I feel it'll be good as a sculpture rather than as a just a flat image, because this was the flat image, if you remember, that I made a few weeks back, that this is the sculptural reference of. Deedley Isak on, you can't see what you're on, but it's saying the 3D printer will pick up on all that detail. Yeah, I did some prints already, so I can show you those again. Here's the printout of the soldier, done on my Formlabs Form 2 machines in the back there. You can see he's pretty tall, about 6 inches or so. I don't know how tall my hand is, slightly taller than my hand. And another soldier, both lined up. This one's the seated one. And then there's the protester, which I need to reprint the hand. One of the hands broke, as you can see right there. But that's basically the dichotomy of this piece when it's all finished and done. About 12 inches by 12 inches, maybe a little bit wider, the diorama. I haven't actually made a multi-character diorama yet, so this is going to be a first for me, especially at this scale. So excited about getting that far. I'm just going to finish prepping the last of these pieces, and then we'll send them off to print. And I'll show you now how I go from this idea that I had in then 3D printing, prep, and sculpting in ZBrush to get the idea to a finished sculpt, and now the actual physical part of preparing it for print. So I don't know what the end result of this piece will be yet, or what it will look like. Maybe we'll do some Keyshot tests to test different looks for paint. And then after that, when I have it finished, I'll show you guys in a week or so the finished printed assembled piece. And then I don't know, I might even try to auction it off and see if I can donate the proceeds to Black Lives Matter as the movement. I'm not really familiar with auctioning off pieces. I haven't really done a lot, and I don't think auctions are very successful unless they reach the target audience. So I'll have to check that out. Camcorder, yes, you are coming through. What kind of design advice are you looking for? All right, got a question from Grim Reaper. When printing parts that have LEDs in them, what's the best material to use? Good question. If you're looking for FDM, I actually have the answer for that. Hold on, I'm gonna pre-process this piece. All right, here we go. So here's the filament that I recommend for if you're going to try to print something with LEDs. This is Overture's PETG filament. And if I show you a bit from the side, this is a translucent filament. So it's see-through. So it's not very see-through, but it's pretty damn see-through. So I'm actually printing a sword for a friend right now with this kind of see-through filament. And she's going to insert LEDs into it. It'll be like a giant cosplay sword for She-Ra, the character. And this material, the Overture PETG, is being see-through and being really cheap to print FDM in, I think is the best recommendation for you. Camcorder saying, I absolutely love your Fungus-Ores, like love. Thank you, mate. I appreciate the support. Yeah, Fungus-Ores has been like a 4-year project for me already. All right, I'm going to decimate this down just a bit more, from 20%, maybe 10%. Actually, I can show you because I have this open over here, the Fungus-Ores journey. Let me lower the screen down. So this is a project, this is kind of the development of my IP here. My partner Fa and I, we've been working on this since 2016. We did the original character designs of the 8 characters and 3D printed out and revealed them at DesignerCon in 2016. From there, we did a Kickstarter in 2017 and did the whole massive toy production after the Kickstarter was funded. We had the toys delivered from our factory in China in 2018. Started working on an AR game demo that would bring the characters to life in 3D. And, you know, just this very small team, 3 or 4 people of us, developing this demo and fulfilling the Kickstarter, getting, you know, the stuff out to all the backers. Then we opened up an online store and set up this office that I'm in now to start producing an animated TV series and full-on game and all sorts of licensed product. So 4 years of me freelancing at various jobs to keep on trying to secure and make this dream. And that's really what it's about. It's consistency is what makes the hustle pay off, is what makes luck appear, in my opinion. Do I have a Discord? I do not have a Discord, but a means of reaching me, yeah, you can contact me on Facebook at Aiman Akhtar, or Instagram at Aiman Akhtar 3D, or I'm on my email, aiman@gmail.com. There, I'll type it in the chat. So if you want to hit me up, you can hit me up on email. All right, so now this part is decimated, and that means it's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the shader on there. So that piece is ready to go, and I'll do the last piece right there. Same dealio. Do a Dynamesh just again to be safe, and then I'll pre-process and decimate. So Z plugin, pre-process and decimate. Yeah, camcorder, if you have any specific design help you need, if you want to hire me out for a project, let me know. I'm happy to take on freelance work right now. I've got 4 or 5 different projects right now that I've got to focus on finishing. Some actually really cool ones with some horror movie IP that I hadn't expected. I just got that job this morning. So now I'm going to be watching a lot of horror films for reference over the coming week. As if life right now hasn't been one big horror film. So much, feels like I'm living in a Black Mirror episode these days. All right, there we go. Got all the pieces here. Everything is keyed and ready to print. The mirror, I'm not actually printing, so that's all right. Camcorder saying it's a need, just advice and general design help. Yeah, happy to do that as well. Like I said, I teach a 3D printing course online as well. If you're interested, 3D printing for ZBrush artists, I'll drop that in the chat log, and you can check that out as well. Might give you everything you need design reference-wise. Oh, and here's the sword I was talking about. I'm printing for a friend. So that'll be all done in clear PETG. I'll print it in pieces and then assemble together. And then when there'll be LED inside of it, it'll all light up. So excited to see that all finish and come together. All right, so now all these pieces are ready. I'm going to save this scene, BLM 7. And I'll finish exporting these last 2 parts, and then let's do some quick color testing in Keyshot to tie up the stream today. Where is my ZBrush stream? There we go, restream, cool. All right, so what do we need to export? The base, so we'll change the name to base 2, and then this will be base 1. And all I should need to do is export this out into my print, base 1, and export this, base 2. And instead of Preform, now we're going to open these in IdeaMaker. It's a print prep software. Open it up. Got a different project in here. I'm going to go ahead and open up a new scene. Give it a second. There we go. So this is IdeaMaker. It's a print prep software for my FDM printers. You can actually choose which printer you'll be using it for. So here I've got the Raise 3D N2 Plus. So I'll switch to that. And it's a really big printer. So 12 inch by 12 inch by 24 inch. So I can print really tall stuff. I'm going to go ahead and go File, Import Models. Navigate over to my desktop, BLM, and print 1. In this case, I'll be printing the base here. So let's see if that'll fit. I really hope it fits. I'm going to go to Rotate. This is going to be tight. Even for my massive printer, it barely fits in there. So yeah, I think it'll fit. Just going to be really tight. Move that in place. Center it as much as I can. And just hope that it prints. So I want to make sure that this is on platform. That just means that it's on the ground. Exactly. We flattened out the bottom so it's pretty sharp and clean and flat. Next thing I want to do is set it up for which material I'll be using it. So I'll start slicing. Actually, before I do that, let me just save the scene. Base 1 prep. And with FDM printers, you've got, it's a different workflow. You choose what material you want to print in, similar to resin. Like instead of PLA, I'm going to be printing this in PETG. So raised 3D PETG 1.75 millimeters is the resolution of my nozzle. Nothing coming up there. I usually have a few different settings in here. Maybe it's a different printer. There you go. I had to click on the V2 Plus hot end. And there's my templates. Standard, that just means that it's not going to go super fast. With PETG, I think that's what I want to do. 15% infill. I don't need any supports. I do have the raft with brim on. And let's go into the advanced and make sure that our platform additions, you can see my raft offset is 10 millimeters. That means it's going to be quite wide. I don't need that much. In this case, I think 3 should do the trick. Temperature settings are pretty high for PETG as compared to PLA, 90 degrees, 250 degrees for the nozzle, 90 degrees for the bed. I think that should all be good. Let's click on OK, save and close, and slice. And let's take a look at what the slice does. All right, let's take a look at a preview. This says it's a 46-hour print, so you can tell it's not fast at all. And we can see what's happening. Layer by layer. So first it's going to print the base, and then from there move up. In this case, I don't even think I need a base because it's such a wide piece. I might try to get rid of the base. I have these settings because I was trying to print tall stuff before, but in this case, I don't think I need a base. So let's adjust that. No platform. And let's change the infill density to 10. And let's see what that does. Yeah, it's a lot of infill. You could probably get away with like 2 or 5% infill, but because it's so wide going up to a really flat top, I want to make sure that there is a good amount of infill there. All right, so that lowered it down from 44 to 36 hours, and let's take a look at the preview there. So a lot better. You can see that there aren't nearly as many cubes as there were before, but there's enough to where once it gets to that level, I feel like the resin should still, not the resin, the filament should have stuff to grab onto. It's going to be tight because you can see how quickly it appears. But I think it should work. And without a base, I think we should be fine printing this directly on the object. So mostly hollowed as it is. I don't need to hollow this print because the FDM slicer automatically hollows it. Kind of. Because the shell is the thickness. Okay. It's adding supports here to the sides. Just to the key there, which I think should be all right. Better to have some support than none there. And let's export to local disk, base 1 prep. And save the scene. And let's do the second base part and then we'll be done. So import that. Base 2. Select that, rotate it. That away. Make sure that it is moved onto platform. And I'll slice using the same settings I've already got. And this should be a lot simpler. This is about 16-hour print. So yeah, printing isn't fast by any means. I could probably reduce this print time if I change the settings, you know, maybe make it twice as fast, but it's not going to actually be worth it if it fails. So I'd rather make sure that it doesn't fail, and hopefully this won't. I think I'll print the small part first before the big part to make sure. All right, save idea file as base 2 prep. And export the G code out, base 2 prep. And that is done. All right, so now we've got all the parts almost set up. I have to finish setting up the other soldier for resin print. So this one's already good and loaded up to the printer. Let me double check that it's in there. Yeah. So just went over to my printer to pull this out. These are a couple of miniatures that I printed on there. Hard to see a bit, I guess, but these are what were on my build plate. So I'm going to remove these and set up the new print. So just bringing that last standing soldier in here. That's the one that needs to get print prepped, and after that I'll have all these models either printed or ready to print. The only other exception being I think I need to reprint this girl's hand and the glasses, so I'll need to prep those to print separately and then add them on to the finished print because they didn't come out well the first time. Alright, so now what I want to do is probably take something like the skin shade material. Let me save the scene. I'll fill the skin shade material, and let's take this into Keyshot to do some quick decision making for how we want this to look when painted. So I'll go to Z plugin, subtool master, fill, color and material, just so everything will just be white. And let's click on render, external render, turn on Keyshot. I haven't updated this in a while, so this may not work, but let's see. And what I want to do is click on BPR. And what it's going to do now is pop open Keyshot using the ZBrush to Keyshot bridge. Alright, so here we go. There's the mesh in Keyshot. Can navigate around a bit, rotate my camera, move it, get the right angles. And now let's try some different material finishes on everything and see if we can get just one color that we like, that works well. So let's try something like soft shiny black, and I can select my scene and drop that material onto everything. And Keyshot is really great for this purpose, to be able to see what your finished thing will look like. So this was my first idea, is to paint the whole thing black. And there is some merit to it. If it's just gloss black, it can actually look really effective. But another thing I could do is maybe make it look more like a classic sculpture. Like they're tearing down several monuments right now. So maybe I could do something that is a bit more metallic looking, like bronze. Now that one's just a bit way too orange for me, so let's try a different material. Brass is still a bit too bright. Here we go, bronze. I think bronze is really great for catching those details and kind of bringing them up. So a combination of bronze with black, I think, would do the trick well for this. Change the environment a bit, increase the contrast. Just do a flat color for the black background, something black. Let's even pick maybe a different environment background, something that will give us an idea of what it'll look like in a different context. And you can rotate that environment around as well. So ZBrush's Keyshot bridge, I think that's actually really great for helping you visualize what something will look like, and actually spit out really good final renders if that's what you're after. Try a gemstone material, possibly. I think this is interesting. It would, you know, kind of speak to the current what's going on with, you know, the bronze cast statues that are being taken down of Confederate monuments across the South of American states. If I make this as kind of a bronze sculpture, kind of to commemorate the replacement, because in 2020, I feel like this is representative of what's going on. At least that's what it's about. It's about my artistic vision. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. Art is about conveying what an artist sees through their lens, and this is kind of what I've been seeing. Try a few different environment backgrounds too to see how they affect the same material. You can see in different lighting, this material looks very different. Increase the brightness as well. So yeah, I'll mess around with this until I get something that I think would be a good paint finish, and then I'll try to do it in real life, IRL. Thank you for watching the ZBrush stream today. This is I'm going to do this kind of heavy topic, at least for a little bit, hopefully. There's a lot that's been on my mind when working on this. It's an emotionally draining exercise to work on a piece like this, because you're constantly, like, it's hard for me right now to even go through my Facebook without seeing all the names of people that have been murdered due to police brutality. So to make a piece about that is constantly making me reflect on those people and, you know, the lives lost. So I might take it easy and just work on some more toony Fungus-Ores for, you know, a little bit, unless I get pulled into it, because it's a very emotional decision to start making a piece like this. As an artist, you need to just create and vent. So thank you guys for joining today to see a bit of my process and how I do it. And I'll see you guys next week. Okay, we've got some controversy going right now on Facebook. I'm an idiot because as an artist, my responsibility is only education, apparently. Sorry, mate, education isn't the only responsibility of an artist. There's a lot of different responsibilities. It really depends on your own point of view. I'd love to hear and see your art in response to this piece if you have something to say. All right, so this piece, this character may not even fit into this build plate, so I might have to slice him up here at the legs and make it two separate prints. And this is just part of the process and seeing how something like this goes. But all right, thank you guys for joining, and I will see you probably in 2 weeks, and I'll show you this finished piece, and we'll do something different. So until next time, cheers.